Brandon Benefield, Gerard Bonner, and Diana Michelle.
What's going on, everybody? It's that time of the week. It's Friday. You know what that means. It's time for your favorite podcast, the SHW podcast. This is our wrestling. I'm B-Double Brandon Benefield, alongside the great GB Gerard Bonner. We are your commentary team for SHW. And as you can see, conspicuous by her absence, the lovely award-winning ring announcer for SHW, Diana Michelle. She's on assignment tonight. I was out of town last week, so now we're back. We got to catch up. And we're going to give you a recap of SHW65. But before we do that, GB, how you feeling, man? How's your week going?
I'm feeling good. We've all done our fair share of traveling and here, there, and everywhere. And that's the beauty of being V3. We are in demand in varying places. So it is always good when we get back together, particularly to talk about all things SHW. And there's always plenty to talk about, especially after SHW65.
No kidding. And of course, we are right around the corner from a massive event, folks. A massive event, October 11th. Come join us at the Action Building. Celebrate 6 years of Southern Honor Wrestling. Can you believe it, GB? 6 years.
It is amazing to see what has happened. Someone recently asked me, from out of state, like, how are things going in SHW? And I was like, you know what? Like, the magic is happening. Like, we're having one of the best years we've ever had. Some of the best. I mean, there's not been a single card that you go, I don't know about that one, because all of them have been fantastic. And so I can only imagine what Still Here 6 will bring. We've learned quite a few things about Still Here 6 at SHW 65, some things we did not expect. But what a year it has been for Southern Honor. And again, you think 6 years of doing what we do at the level that we have done it.
Yeah.
I know there's been talk that, the what is it? The rising ship, or the ship rises all tides, or
something like that. Rises
something
all
like
boats,
that.
Or,
rising
tide raises all
something
ships.
like that. And so it's
the saying, folks. You
guys know what
is.
we're trying to say. It's safe to say that Southern Honor has certainly impacted the space of Georgia wrestling and Southeast wrestling in a significant way. And while there are some who may wrestle with, okay, who's number one, et cetera, I challenge any promotion in the Southeast to argue with the point that there has been no promotion who has been more consistent in terms of in-ring activity, production, live production, television production. There's nobody that has been more consistently at the top.
Commentary.
Well, then there's, all commentary, ring announcing, like all of the things. It's Southern Honor Wrestling. And so it is a real honor to be around for Still Here 6. And it's going to be amazing. Just mark your calendars now. I know a lot of wrestling's happening around in the month of October, but October the 11th, there's one place to be. It is the Action Building for Still Here 6.
Yeah, it's going to be unreal. And of course, the reason I bring that up, and you touched on it a second ago, GB, is a lot of stuff happened at SHW 65 with a lot of implications heading into the anniversary show. Absolutely. And as you mentioned, we learned a lot of things. We learned of a few matches that are going to be taking place earlier this week. Throughout the week, we've seen a couple of match announcements. One that we knew of, and then a couple of other ones that we were surprised by. So we'll touch on that when we get towards the end of this episode. But sure. Man, let's go back and recap what was a crazy, amazing show. And again, back to something you said a second ago. So consistent, SHW all year long, so consistent. There's not a card that you've been like, they've all been big, giant cards that just blew you away.
Right.
This was one of them. And sometimes people think it's kind of like a WWE. You have the Royal Rumble, then you have a show, and then you have WrestleMania. And people kind of always look at that show in the middle and kind of, Sometimes people think that in SHW as well. That was not the case here for SHW 65. This show, like I said, major implications. It was huge. One of the best match cards we've had as far as in-ring matches. I mean, these matches they blew us away. Just such really great top talent on the roster, and new guys that came along this month that may have debuted at the Rumble Jack. and then they had their singles debut the other night at 65. So
Yeah.
great card. But let's kind of start things out, starting the show. I won't say is always the case, but a lot of times the GM, Gary Lamb, coming down to say a few words to the
Yeah.
SHW faithful there in Canton.
Mhm.
And we were told that there was going to be a face-to-face between Gary Lamb and 1/3 of Exotic Youth. Turned out to be 2/3, but it was supposed to be with Zach Mosley. Of course, there was
Right.
Cornelius Pepperbottom at his side.
Mhm.
And that actually it was chaotic, but then actually turned into an unannounced match, a match we didn't even know we
Yes.
were going to have.
That's right.
I'll talk about that in a second. Yeah.
Yeah, it certainly did. I mean, Exotic Youth, again, was not scheduled to be there. And so now you end up in this situation where, if my memory serves me correctly, it wasn't exactly a tag team match. The way it boiled down to, it was this: Zach Mosley asked for something very significant from Gary Lamb. Specifically, he wanted Gary Lamb in the ring at Still Here 6. He wanted a match between Zach and Gary. Gary was like, no, but I'll consider it if you beat the guy who's about to come through the curtain. And who shows up but a very angry Gunnar Miller. And if you remember how Gunnar Miller's time at SHW64 ended, you understand why he is angry. He thought he would be the man at Rumblejack to take the championship from Judas. He had a last man standing match. Clearly, this would be the way, but Judas found a way, even if it was in a completely different ring. So now here we are, an angry Gunnar Miller, one half of Exotic Youth, or 1/3 of Exotic Youth. And, well, let's just say the amount of time that Zach Mosley spent talking to Gary Lamb was longer than the match.
Oh, absolutely. And it turned out to be, we weren't even really sure, but it looked like a handicap match because it ended up being, it was Cornelius Pepperbottom that took the pinfall after Mosley spilled to the outside. Now, of course, Mosley had brought that cooler with him to the ring. Now, you remember the Rumblejack, they brought that cooler. They were planning on going a full 60 minutes. So they brought some refreshments. They brought their whatever, energy drinks or something in that cooler to the Rumblejack, and they were kind of drinking the drinks throughout the match.
Yeah.
Well, they brought that same cooler, and we assumed it was filled with drinks like it was at the previous show. What we did not know was that there was this it wasn't like a full-size cinder block, but it was like the size of a brick, but it was this concrete block, whatever you want to call it, cinder block, brick, whatever it was. You don't want to get hit by it. Trust me.
No.
But Gunnar Miller, after pinning Cornelius Pepperbottom, Mosley jumps back in the ring and just completely lambasted Gunnar Miller in the back of the head, and that block just exploded, and it was sick. I mean, it was sickening to see. It was tough to watch, and it happened so fast too. Like, we weren't quite sure what just happened.
Right.
And it's rare that you see Gunnar Miller just laid out, completely out cold, and he was laying there. We had to get a medic and some of the officials from the back to come check on him. And then Gunnar, being Gunnar, once he came to, shrugging off the help, he doesn't want help. But you know that that's it going to be in his head. Like, he's going to be, if he wasn't mad enough coming into SHW65 after losing at the Rumblejack, can you only imagine what kind of mood he's going to be in going into October 11th at the anniversary?
Yeah, you don't want to deal with an angry Gunnar Miller. And it leaves us with more questions than answers, because Gary Lamb came back out to run off Exotic Youth, to check on Gunnar Miller. And we know the long-standing relationship between Gunnar Miller and Gary Lamb. So now we've got questions. Does Gary Lamb now rethink this offer that was made for a match, considering he doesn't have to have it, as Exotic Youth did not defeat Gunnar Miller? Will Gunnar Miller want some degree of revenge? Like, what are we looking at here? We don't know. Again, more questions to be answered on the road to Still Here 6.
Oof. Craziness. And that was just the very beginning of the show. On a night where we knew we had a stacked card. And we knew we were going to get a big announcement from Carly Bravo. We'll get to that here in a second. But who, by the way, was the Rumblejack winner. So we knew he was going to pick which title he was going to go after. But before we get to that, let's talk about 1/3 of the hierarchy coming out to have a singles match with Xander Seabolt of the Grapplers, who is maybe one half of the tag team champions, one third, one fifth, one
fifth,
sixth.
right? Who
Yeah,
knows?
who knows what? But he was out there with one of the titles, one of the tag titles, and he was also flanked by Grappler 1, or maybe it was 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6. I'm not
Who
sure.
knows?
They all wear the mask. I can't tell them apart. I'm sorry. But there was another grappler out there with him and at ringside. But then you have Murder 1, and you knew going into this, Murder just was itching to get his hands on any of the grapplers, but
Yes.
specifically Seabolt. And we talked about it on the pre-show before the night even started about I just don't feel I don't feel very good for Seabolt here. Nobody
No.
wants to, especially you never want to go against Murder 1, but especially an angry Murder 1. So,
Right.
yeah, it was. I think the first time we've seen Seabolt in a singles match in SHW. We've seen him in some tag action. Of course, he was in the Rumble Jack,
Mhm.
but yeah. Nobody. You don't want to make your singles debut against an angry Murder 1, and
No.
it was a rough night at the office. Let's just say for Seabolt.
It was, and it was equally surprising to see him walk to the ring flanked in the SHW Tag Team Title Championship belt, and we're just like, wait, what? And so it was interesting, and I was also intrigued by I mean, I guess you can't go in scared even against a Murder 1, but Seabolt had an unusual amount of confidence, and it was kind of shocking to see. And he held his own for what he could do in that match. But of course, Murder 1 turned things around, getting the big win, and then setting things up for a space that I don't know that any of us were prepared for.
Yeah. So it looked like it had all the makings for Still Here 6. It looked like we were going to see a rematch, the Hierarchy versus the Grapplers.
Right.
Hierarchy finally getting a solid shot to regain those tag team championships.
Hmm.
And then we get a live video feed, I guess from wherever AEW was that week,
Hmm.
because Carly Bravo could not be there in person. We knew he
Right.
was supposed to be there to make his big announcement after winning the Rumble Jack. This just so happened to be a night where Friday night Collision was coming to us live,
Right.
and it was not going to be on Saturday. And
Right.
so because of that, Carly was and Sean Dean, who we come to
Hmm.
find was going to be there with Carly.
Yeah.
So Carly makes this big announcement that his title shot is going to be for the tag team championships at Still Here 6. And then enter the frame, the Captain Sean Dean. So now it turns into a triple threat match for the tag team titles. We're going to see the Infantry versus the Hierarchy versus
Hmm.
the champions, the Grapplers. Talk about an explosive situation. I mean, this match is going to be insane. And it's Still Here 6. So the whole card's going to be insane.
Right.
And I mean, what were your thoughts when we heard that announcement from Bad News and Tattoos?
So, we had Bad News and Tattoos right here on this podcast, and we kind of, laid out for him the opportunity in terms of what would he do. And at that point is where it seemed as though he learned that he could choose any championship. I think, obviously there was a case to be made for him to battle for any of those titles. And in my heart of hearts, I think I wanted to see him battle for the SHW championship. I felt like here's a guy who has beaten 7 former SHW champions. To be in the main event of Still Here 6 after winning the Rumble Jack only made sense to me. But there was a different vision for Carly, and I get it. We can go back to Still Here 3, the very first pre-show match in SHW history, and it featured the Infantry. So as much as we might have wanted to see him fight for the singles championship, him fighting for the tag team championship makes sense. And but he did not stack the deck in his favor, because now you insert yourself there with the Hierarchy, who we know will pretty much go after anybody to get those tag titles, and the Grapplers, who won the championship in a multi-team match. This is going to get very interesting. Now, I have heard that the Infantry, in preparation for this,
Yeah.
is not going to just battle teams on Collision and Ring of Honor. They have actually issued a challenge called the Infantry Invitational, where they have challenged, there's an open challenge to any team in any promotion in Georgia. If you want to come up and test your worth against the Infantry, you get to do that. And I think that is an incredible way to keep yourself warm for Still Here 6. So to me, that could make the infantry the odds-on favorites for this tag team match. Nothing against the hierarchy, but it makes them the odds-on favorite since they're going to be prepared in this particular scenario. So I'm looking forward to seeing how prepared the infantry will be walking into this space.
Absolutely. I cannot wait. And I think you're right, GB. It shocked a lot of people that, and you know what? We're excited. You're excited. The little man in the background's excited. And I know Diana would be excited too if she was here.
Yeah, she would
But
be.
we were all kind of blown away that he didn't choose the Southern Honor Championship to go after. But we're also very excited to see the return of the infantry as a team to get a shot at SHW Tag Team Gold.
Right.
And not just any shot, a shot at the 6th anniversary, Still Here 6. It's going to be huge, folks. You're not going to want to miss that. Well, right after that, with the hierarchy already being out there at ringside with Murder One, the Kenway. We knew the Kenway had a matchup, and he took on Jackson Drake, newcomer Jackson Drake, who debuted at the Rumble Jack, and of course making his singles debut here at SHW65.
And, you know, I'll tell you about this match. Going into it, there was great excitement because Jackson Drake, his pedigree is pretty amazing. He was partners with current NXT superstar Javon Evans, who, shout out to Javon, getting ready to battle Randy Orton in a couple of weeks. Matter of fact, the week of Still Here 6. That's nuts.
Yeah.
And so Jackson Drake came in highly touted. For those who were unfamiliar and unaware, you could make the argument that this match was a contender for match of the night. It's the best we've seen the Kenway, in my humble opinion. And it's also Jackson Drake just absolutely showing up and showing out. What a match.
Man, oh man. And guys that we knew each other. They go back. Both, I think, kind of considered Joe Black to be a mentor for both of those guys. And so, you know, and Joe was very interested in this match. Even leading up to it, he had been posting on social media that this was a match that he was very interested in seeing. And yeah, him and Murder at ringside during the whole match. And then afterwards, Kenway came out victorious. But with Drake out on the floor, we don't know what was said, but you and I both acknowledged it. We saw Joe Black go over to him and say something in Drake's ear. I don't know what it was, but maybe some words of encouragement or something. But he definitely impressed a lot of people in his Southern Honor singles debut for sure.
He certainly did, and I'd love to see Jackson Drake back. And you do wonder, what did Joe Black say to Jackson Drake, and what will that do for the future of Jackson Drake in Southern Honor?
And before we moved on to the next match, of course, I got the text from the matchmaker himself, Jake the Snake Roberts. As you recall, we just mentioned it. Carly Bravo, prior to this match, had made his intentions known that he was going to be seeking the tag team title opportunity at Still Here 6. So Jake the Snake said, you know what? Well, in that case, we need to have a match to determine a number one contender for the Southern Honor Championship. And then we just found out right there at that very moment, we were going to have a 6-man Still Here eliminator match to determine the number one contender for the SHW title. And those 6 men were CT Keys, Nick Halen, Hunter James, Kyle Matthews, Alexander Lev, and we just talked about him, Joe Black at number 6. By the way, just to rewind real quick, we were under the impression, I think prior to this, that in the triple threat tag team matchup, it was going to be Murder One and Joe Black representing the hierarchy.
Right.
Keep that in mind, and we'll get to the main event, and we'll kind of tell you how it all played out. But so that was going to be our main event. That set it up right there. But we still had a few other matches to get to. Coming up next, another singles debut here at Southern Honor Wrestling. Actually, a debut overall because he wasn't even at the Rumble Jack. I'm talking about Aaron Dallas taking on veteran Sal Renaro, our pal. And talk about another matchup that impressed a lot of people. I'm telling you, these guys making their debuts, I mean, turned a lot of heads, impressed a lot of folks that night. But talk about this match between Sal Renaro. Well, first of all, talk about what Sal was doing when he stole Diana's phone, because that was crazy. If you haven't seen it, check out our Instagram page.
Yeah, Sal Renaro grabbed her phone and just decided to start recording himself and doing all kinds of things. And then apparently tagged Diana to go in and have his match. And thankfully, Diana was quick on her feet and tagged back and allowed Sal to get in there.
There's that hot
This
tag.
the hot tag for sure. So this was an important match for multiple reasons. Number one, we know how difficult it is to debut at Southern Honor and win. So this is definitely a debut for Aaron Dallas, 3 years in the business versus the veteran that is Sal Renaro. But if Aaron Dallas was going to debut against anybody on the Southern Honor roster, this may have been his best opportunity to get a win. And that's not a knock to Sal Renaro, but it is to say that Sal Renaro has not won a match in Southern Honor this entire calendar year, which is actually crazy if you think about that.
Yeah.
I mean, he took a loss a couple of months ago to Zach Buchanan, and that allowed Zach to enter into the Rumble Jack. It's just so you never imagine that someone with 25, 26 years experience would be on this kind of losing streak, but that's what's happened. So the question would be, could Sal break his losing streak against Aaron Dallas, or would Aaron Dallas, really punch his ticket into all things Southern Honor by defeating the legendary Sal Renaro? If you were there, you know what happened. If you weren't and you need a reminder or you need to be informed, congratulations, Aaron Dallas, who impressed a lot of people. And apparently the SHW faithful were pretty familiar with him as they were chanting for him properly with AA Ron, as opposed to us, we called him Aaron. He says, no, call me AA Ron. That was enough to get him the 1, 2, 3. So congratulations to Aaron Dallas, who gets a big win over Sal Renaro.
Yeah, and by the way, GB mentioned if you were there, you saw it. If you weren't, well, we're letting you know. But also, even though we're letting you know, it is on IWTV. So go back and watch it, because trust me, this whole show, top to bottom, was an incredible show. And you're going to want to get prepped heading in to Still Here 6 on October 11th. So this will be a great way to do that. Now, if you go back and watched it on IWTV, after that matchup, Sal Renaro talked to our very own Cheyenne Michaels backstage after the match. Now, here's the thing. We had already heard that Paul Walter Hauser was going to be returning to SHW at Still Here 6.
Mm-hmm.
And we heard that he might be in action. We didn't really know what that meant. We didn't know who he might be facing. Well, in that backstage interview, Sal Renaro has called out Paul Walter Hauser for a match at SHW Still Here 6. Will that match be made official? Only time will tell. I hope it will be, because I think that has the makings of an incredible matchup. And I hope it happens. It's Still Here 6.
Yeah, it would be incredible to see. And again, the last time we saw Paul Walter Hauser was inside of that incredible structure, the War Chamber, as he partnered with the Hierarchy. He became a Hierarchy member for the night, and they got the win over the Endgame thanks to his hard work. So it'll be interesting to see his return to Southern Honor, and if that does turn into a match, or if he's just going to come out, enjoy the fans, sign autographs, take pictures, all the things. We'll find out. Now, don't push him. He's close to the edge, and he'll end up in the ring, and it could be a problem for Sal Renaro.
Absolutely. Now, of course, coming down the list after that matchup was another singles match debut, this time for Big Trouble Ben Bishop, taking on that ugly duckling, Rob Killjoy. And Rob Killjoy can have an incredible match with absolutely anybody. And going into this, you're thinking the size of Big Trouble Ben Bishop is just too much. There's no way that he can go one-on-one with this guy in any kind of and keep up with him at all. But it's Killjoy. You know what I mean? Killjoy. We talk about Sal Renaro being a longtime veteran. So is Rob Killjoy. Yeah. Ask anybody that's been around any length of time, anybody that's ever been in the ring with him, and they'll tell you Rob Killjoy has got it, right? And Ben Bishop had his work cut out for him in his singles debut. Now, he turned a lot of heads and impressed all of us in his Rumblejack debut when he actually eliminated Logan Creed, and then later in the match was going toe-to-toe with the Atrocity Cruel to the point where both men got eliminated and fought each other all the way to the backstage and perhaps all throughout Canton, Georgia. And so the fact that anybody can do that is impressive. So I was a little worried for Killjoy, but I was also thinking, well, you know what? Ben Bishop's got his work cut out for him as well here.
That's right. You know, where there's a will, there's a way. And that's been the story of the year for Rob Killjoy, who has found a way to win, and keep on winning. And that's what he's been doing for all of 2024. So that made this a very interesting challenge, easily his tallest and potentially toughest challenge since being a part of the SHW roster. Valiant battle, valiant fight. In the end, once again, a newcomer gets a win in their singles debut, and many would argue that this was an upset. Ben Bishop gets the win over Rob Killjoy, and that set us up for a surprising announcement, which will happen at Still Here 6, which caught a lot of us off guard.
Absolutely, it did. Now, we knew going into the show that we were going to, unfortunately, have to hear from the Action Wrestling CEO, Matt Griffin, so we knew he was in the building. Ben Bishop wins his match, but before he has any time to really celebrate the win, out comes Matt Griffin with microphone in hand, congratulating Ben Bishop. I think he was maybe trying to recruit him to the action side of things, perhaps. But as much as I don't like to admit it, Griffin is also kind of a representative, a mouthpiece, if you will, for IWTV. And with that being said, he made the huge blockbuster announcement that at Still Here 6, the Atrocity Crew will defend the Independent Wrestling World Championship one-on-one against Big Trouble, Ben Bishop, in a Southern Honor ring. Those two behemoths for a world title at Still Here 6. It's going to be absolutely incredible. I can't wait for that.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this match. What a reward. What a gift for Ben Bishop. I mean, he comes in, impresses at the Rumble Jack, goes toe-to-toe with the IWTV World Champion, comes in at SHW65, beats the veteran Rob Killjoy, who we've referred to as the gatekeeper of SHW, and for his troubles, he gets a world title shot. That is pretty impressive, and you've got to think, based on what we've seen from the last two shows for Ben Bishop, he's going to take full advantage of this opportunity that he has coming up on October the 11th.
Man, it's gonna just that match alone.
Yeah.
And like I said earlier, that's on top of what you know is going to be a massive card for our anniversary. That's going to be incredible. Well,
it is.
After that announcement, Matt Griffin proceeded to enter the ring and then throw out the challenge for Still Here 6 in a 3-on-3 matchup where he's going to have the Action Wrestling All-Stars. We don't know which three guys it will be taking on three Southern Honor originals, who we also don't know who it's going to be yet. So bit of a mystery, and I'm sure we'll find out over the next couple of weeks. But three Action Stars versus three Southern Honor originals, another match that's just going to blow us away, I'm sure.
Yeah, it certainly is. You could argue that it's turf wars, but this war has been building honestly for years. You know, and I can't wait to talk about this particular story because you're looking at two companies that were sworn enemies. I mean, the first Friday, and again, most people wouldn't, well, unless you're a fan and you may have been attending Action Wrestling, your loyalty might have been divided. Are you going to be in North Georgia or are you going to be, you know, south of Atlanta on the first Friday night? Because the battle was between Canton and Tyrone in terms of where you were going to spend your time on a first Friday. It became difficult for wrestlers involved. Wrestlers who wanted to be a part of both companies were being forced to choose. It was a very contentious time between Action Wrestling and Southern Honor Wrestling. And now we'll get to settle this battle inside of a ring. You talk about things you thought you would never see. We've been here for most of the 6 years. You've been here for all of the 6 years. We never thought we would see Action Wrestling versus Southern Honor Wrestling in a match. And of all places, Still Here 6 inside of the Action building. trust me, guys, this is the kind of history that you want to make sure you are present for. Who's going to represent Action? Who's going to represent Southern Honor? Will there be someone who represents both companies whose loyalties will have to be chosen on that night? I don't know, but I'm excited about this. The names, and remember, the key on the Southern Honor side was that they had to be day ones, which excludes a certain group of people.
Yeah.
And again, you were here day one. You know who was here. So
real quick, it won't be me. I promise you that. Just before anybody gets any ideas.
Yeah.
I'm retired.
Yeah. Your actions are usually towards one group of people if there are going to be any actions. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens.
But I will tell you this: if there's anybody that can make my blood boil almost as much as Exotic Youth, it would probably be Matt Griffin.
Yeah.
And to your point a second ago, GB, over the last couple of years, it's kind of blown me away. Ever since Matt Griffin first stepped foot in the Action building and showed up at one of our shows, and then he's kind of showed up a little more consistently. And every time it blows me away. I'm like, what is this guy doing here?
Yeah.
And the fact that we've seen, from time to time, almost like an infiltration of Action wrestlers showing up and trying to, I don't know what they're trying to do, take over. Yeah, right. But we've seen the Action title defended at a Southern Honor show. We've seen the Southern Honor title defended down there in Tyrone at an Action show. So, I mean, it's just crazy. Like you mentioned, the feud between these two companies and all the craziness that has happened up to this point. And it's all going to lead to Still Here 6, where we have this huge 3-on-3 matchup, the Action Wrestling All-Stars, the Southern Honor Originals. It all takes place October 11th. But we still got a couple more big matches on this card for SHW65. The next one, the return of Zicky Dice. We saw him return to the building at the Rumble Jack, but he returned to singles action at Still Here 6 against a man who debuted in the Rumble Jack and made his singles debut at 65. What did I say? 65? 50, yeah,
65.
Right.
He made his debut at the Rumble Jack or what have you. Yeah.
There's a lot of numbers. I get in my head. I'm like, did I say 56 or 65?
No, you said 65.
Colby Carino is who I'm talking about.
Yes.
The NWA star. And both men, formerly from the NWA, Zicky Dice. Both men previously holding titles in the NWA. And but what a singles matchup this was, GB.
Yeah, whenever you get two guys who are well-traveled, again, they bring all of those experiences into this particular space. And that's what we saw. We knew this was going to be one of those that we had to keep our eyes on. And it absolutely was. Two guys who know how to break the rules. They can choose when they want to. Carino definitely chose to break a rule or two. It was a challenging back and forth kind of match between these two guys who continue to prove not only why they were on a national stage, but why it's so significant that they're on our stage and on our platform having this match. What a match. Again, another contender for match of the night. And quite frankly, I'd love for them to run that back.
Absolutely. Wouldn't that be awesome?
Yeah.
And it was Zicky that came out. And the thing is, it could have gone either way. The whole match.
It really could have.
And I wouldn't say that one way or the other would have been an upset.
Right.
But at the end of the night, it was Zicky Dice that came out on top with his hand raised in an incredible matchup. And like you said, I would love to see that one again if the opportunity presents itself. But that would lead us to our huge main event, the 6-man Still Here eliminator match that we had only found out about just moments before, like maybe an hour before this.
Right.
And now I don't have the list of entry numbers in front of me, but I do recall Joe Black entered first, and I believe was CT Keys the next one out. Because I feel like temporarily we got just them one-on-one.
We did
before everybody else came out, right?
That's right. Wow.
So that was one of those things. It harkened me back to the Rumble Jack where we saw a couple of face-offs. One. Alex Kane obviously was one with Joe Black and CT Keys, but there was a time where Joe Black and CT Keys kind of squared off, and I thought, this is a match, a singles match that the fans would be chomping at the bit for, and we got a small little taste of that at the beginning of this eliminator match. Now, the way this match worked, I believe it was like every 1 minute or 2 minutes, the next entry would come out.
Right.
And you could not eliminate anybody until all 6 guys were out there, and the
Right.
only way to eliminate was pinfall or submission.
That's right.
Okay, and so it was just absolutely chaotic. Again, the folks that were out there, it was Joe Black, CT Keys, Nick Halen, Hunter James, Kyle Matthews, Alexander Lev. And of course, when Lev's around, the faithful are going to be following close behind. And so we did see the Warden, we did see Grayson Pierce as well. But what it would come down to, GB, it would come down to Joe Black, Nick Halen, and CT Keys. Those 3 guys were the last 3 in this matchup. I'll let you take it from here because it was just absolutely nuts.
Yeah, so coming into this, firstly, I commend all 6 participants because they did not have long to prepare at all. Some of them weren't even scheduled to wrestle. And
well,
to
in fact, to your point, just and you can touch on this if you want. We were supposed to see Kyle Matthews and Alexander Lev in a singles match.
Correct.
And so, what's that do to the mindset there to think you're going to have a one-on-one match? And then, wait, you're just both of you were thrown into a 6-man eliminator? What?
An eliminator with the main event of Still Here 6 on the line. Oof. Right? So a massive opportunity for all 6 of these competitors. And you're right, it came down to the 2 members of the End Game and Joe Black. Now, my thought with the End Game being involved, we asked the question at the start of this, what is their job? What are they there to do? And primarily it seemed like they were there to secure the interests of the champion Judias, as they've been doing for well over 420 some odd days. Oof. Well, things got very interesting when Nick Halen made the decision, because it was clearly a decision, to pin CT Keys. Yeah. Shocked all of us. That would have made sense if it came down to the 2 of them. But it did not. That caused some understandable friction between CT Keys and Nick Halen, and it's got us asking ourselves, are we seeing cracks in the End Game? Certainly appeared that way, and Joe Black would pick up the spoils, pick up the scraps with from Haiti with love to Nick Halen, and now we've got ourselves a new #1 contender for the Southern Honor Championship. Joe Black is back in the main event of Still Here, right where he belongs, finally getting a long-awaited rematch. I mean, we remember the last time he battled Judias, and it was extremely controversial because, again, he pretty much won the match and got robbed. And it seems like that has been happening over and over and over again. But this time around, it could be different. And Joe Black, for the first time in a long time, got on the mic and did what he does best. Nobody else in independent wrestling can talk like Joe Black, period. But it's what he said. I never questioned Joe Black. Never, ever. But what he said at the end of this gave me cause for great concern.
Yeah. There was a couple things. Not only did he throw down the challenge for the championship match to take place inside of a steel cage.
Correct.
But then he also said, he touched on how long he's been doing this. He touched on how beat up his body is. He's got a knee that's been giving him nagging problems for a while. He touched on all these things, and it made us all kind of like, wait a second, where's he going with this? What's about to happen here? And that's when he dropped that bombshell, GB, where he says, if I cannot beat Judias and Still Here 6, then I will retire. I mean, you could hear a pin drop in there because the whole action building just kind of was like, wait, what? Everybody just kind of gasped. Like, wait, what? What did he just say? So you're going to have a Southern Honor Championship matchup, steel cage match, no less, where if Joe Black cannot win, cannot defeat Judias, he will retire. So it's career versus championship in a steel cage for the main event of Still Here 6.
I have to admit, and I hate to use this term, it kind of gave me PTSD because I thought about AC Mack,
Yeah.
who made that similar declaration that and it was during the Jake the Snake Legacy tournament that
To another member of the end game,
to another member of
coincidentally.
the end game, that if he could not beat him, he would retire. And actually, I'm sorry, it was after the tournament, as they both got eliminated, but they were responsible for helping each other get eliminated. And again, I can't see a Southern Honor without AC Mack, but this is the world we're in now. But now we're talking about everything on the line for Joe Black. If there's ever, and he said this, if there's ever any name that is synonymous with Southern Honor, it is Joe Black. There was a recent post that Gary Lamb did where he talked about if we were to ever create a Southern Honor Hall of Fame, who would be the first inductee? And the unanimous answer was Joe Black. He is Mr. SHW if we were to add that moniker to anyone.
Yeah.
Former SHW champion, former SHW tag team champion, winner of the Rumble Jack. He's main evented multiple still here events. But this one's the biggest.
Yeah.
Because I put him against anybody, and I put him against Judas. He's pinned Judas. He made Judas tap. Like he's done these things, but there's something about when you back Judas into a corner. You know, I believe it was last year at Still Here. David Ali thought he had him in a corner with this casket match, and somehow he found a way. Judas found a way. Gunnar Miller thought he had him in this last man standing match at Rumble Jack. Judas found a way. Judas is the longest reigning Southern Honor champion, the most defenses. He's the greatest Southern Honor champion we've ever had. This is as big of a mountain as Joe Black can ever climb. But can he climb it? Absolutely. Could the steel cage work in his favor? Absolutely. What scares me, though, is if there's some sort of shenanigans, some sort of craziness, we don't get a do-over. And I just do not want to see I'm just going to say it, and some people might not like it, but I mean, prove me wrong. The greatest wrestler to don the shores of Southern Honor Wrestling, Joe Black. I am not willing to see his career go up in smoke at Still Here 6. So we're not doing predictions yet, but trust me, all my energy is behind Joe Black ending the historic reign of Judas inside of a steel cage. What a way to end our 6-year anniversary, and I'd love to see it happen.
Absolutely. And you touched on all of Judas's accolades, especially since becoming the SHW champion. And there's no doubt, there's no argument that right now he is the greatest champion we've ever had.
Mm-hmm.
But I often wonder, there's always the what ifs. You know, Joe Black's reign as Southern Honor champion was cut short due to injury.
Yes. Yes.
Had he not gotten injured, I can only imagine. You know, I think he could, at this point, would be the greatest champion of all time. But we'll never know.
For sure.
But he'll get this chance to become the greatest champion of all time, because if he walks out of Still Here 6 with that title, he will be the new Southern Honor champion. And, man, it's going to be nuts. Steel cage, but then that stipulation, career versus championship, makes me nervous, makes everybody nervous. But if there's one man that can do it, that can topple Judas, I think it's Joe Black. So we'll see.
We will definitely see. You know, we have seen this in the air, and you know, the good thing is these kinds of matches, oftentimes the person who's put their career on the line is able to reach deep and overcome insurmountable odds and continue their career. And that's what I'm hoping for Joe Black. I've got to imagine he'll have all of the help there in his hierarchy brothers. But even if he were alone, You don't bet against black.
Always bet on black. That's what they say.
Always bet on black.
There you go. Well, I'll tell you what, it was a massive show, SHW65. It's going to be an even more massive show on October 11th at SHW Still Here 6. Now,
Mhm.
since that time, since the last show, we've seen a couple of graphics posted on social media over this past week. There will be more in the coming days to fill out that card for our anniversary show. A couple that we did not know about. Now, we did see the Joe Black Judias graphic, so we knew about
Mhm.
that one ahead of time. Coming out of 65. But a couple others that popped up this past week. One earlier today that I'll talk about in a second. That got a lot of people excited. I'm excited. We're going to see a rematch. It's going to be Kyle Matthews taking on Hollywood Hunter James for the Jake the Snake Legacy Championship in a 2 out of 3 falls match with special enforcer, our matchmaker himself, Jake the Snake Roberts. He'll be there as
Mhm.
the guest enforcer. And finally, I hope Kyle Matthews can get a clean shot here in this 2 out of 3 falls match. So there's that coming up. And then one that earlier today, now we talked about these guys. They were 2 of the last 3 men in the Eliminator match the other night at 65. I'm talking about Nick Halen, CT Keys. They will be going one-on-one, but not
Wow.
just that. It was announced that their one-on-one matchup will be a number 1 contenders match for the Jake the Snake Legacy Championship. So,
Wow.
I mean, just
Wow.
it's going to be insane, folks. It's going to be insane. And then, like I mentioned, the poster for the Joe and Judias match was shared yesterday or the day before as well. So
Mhm.
it's going to be crazy. Now, again, if you didn't see IWTV, if you haven't watched SHW 65 yet, Joe Black's promo that he did after the show or after the match the other night got posted either a day or two ago on social media. So you can watch it on there and see what GB was talking about and all the things that Joe Black said leading up to the announcement that he would retire if he cannot win the title at our anniversary. So it's going to be huge. It's going to be just, and there's still more to be announced. That's the crazy thing.
Yeah.
By
Yeah.
the way, the original Nitro girl, Miss Kimberly Page, is going to be at Still
She'll
Here
be in the
6.
house.
Did I
Yeah.
read that right?
She will be in the house. That's gonna
That's
be
crazy.
incredible. And just so many moments, so many people, Still Here is just always unpredictable. It's always star-studded, filled with incredible moments. Needless to say, start making your plans now. October the 11th. You might want to start camping out now to get tickets because, yeah, I'm certain it's going to sell out. It's going to be a massive night, and there are tons of reasons for you to be there. So make plans to be with us on October 11th. And again, get caught up on the road to All Things Still Here by going back onto IWTV and checking out the entire catalog. Watch all of the Still Here, see how we have progressed from Still Here 1 through now. And then, of course, watch everything from this year so that you're fully up to date on All Things Still Here 6.
Man, oh man, we cannot wait to see you there. But we will see you back here on this podcast because we still got a few weeks before October 11th. And we'll see you back here, hopefully with Diana Michelle by our
Yes.
side next week. So that's going to do it. But until then, this has been SHW.
And this is our wrestling.